Hello, welcome back to Overclock Showcase, the series where I showcase overclocks in two different ways, and that's it. This week we're on to the first Scout overclock of season 2, and that's season 2 of this series, not season 2 of Deep Rock Galactic, of course. We're going to be covering, of course, if you watched the last video, you'll know it's going to be about Overclocked Firing Mechanism, which of course is for the GK. So this is our first GK2 overclock. It's a balanced overclocked firing mechanism. It significantly increases the rate of fire while giving us significantly increased recoil as well. This is an interesting overclock. I guess, I mean, I'm going to say that for literally all of them because there's always something to say. So you can kind of just take that or leave it. I don't actually know if I'd call it interesting. But what it is maybe it might be my second favourite GK2 overclock. My favorite is very, very easily Electric Reload. Electric Reload is awesome. I just love it. It's extremely dynamic and interesting what it does to the GK2, and it's also very good. So I really appreciate it. But the GK2 is itself quite a strong weapon now, which is why, and I guess I do find it genuinely interesting where we have a balanced overclock that has a pretty tangible penalty, and all it's adding to this weapon is rate of fire. Which comes across as almost backwards in a way, where it's like, this isn't actually making this weapon stronger. If anything, it's just making it lose ammo faster. Of course, that role has been taken by Burst Fire, which leaves Overclocked Firing Mechanism just to basically be the closest you can get to turning the GK2 into a minigun. Because it is some serious rate of fire. In fact, I'm pretty sure this build is actually meant to be all in on rate of fire. I've got two builds to show you as always, this one and this one. And you can kind of see the differences. You can see the similarities too. The similarities being the Bolt Shark, which I'm not happy about. I'm not happy that both of these builds use the Bolt Shark, but listen. If you're like me, if you play mostly solo and you play mostly Hazard 5, let's be honest, right? As in, I want you to be honest with me. I assume that you're using the Bolt Shark 90% of the time, because it just fills in all the gaps that Scout normally has with like his other weapons. This has only been partially patched by the fact that gas recycling is okay at crowd clear, and double barrel is really good, but double barrel is also more single target anyway. It's really strange. The Bolt Shock just completely changes Scout. I might actually be willing to call it its best weapon for just for a couple of reasons. It's not perfect, but it's not far off either. It's really a great weapon. Anyway, so the two builds still use both use the Bolt Shark, but quite differently, I would say. Anyway, we're gonna be starting with this one. So what this build is I guess you could just call it the masher, basically. It's just all in on rate of fire and damage, which makes tier 4 quite important, but we'll go through tier by tier. Well, tier 1 and tier 5 don't really need to be explained, it's just all ammo. Tier 2, damage. Well, here's the thing about the GK2 and this overclock. I would say this overclock definitely does encourage taking ammo more so, especially because I know that the GK2, in fact, I think this applies to most weapons, you end up with more total damage when you take ammo. And I think that's the point. You have more total damage, but obviously it takes you longer to actually output it. And so with when you're increasing rate of fire, I think that's actually more tempting because we can output that hefty ammo capacity quicker. But I didn't want one of these builds to not be taking extra damage, and it feels really great, especially combined with armor breaking. What armor breaking does, it lets us hit. Am I in a party? It lets us hit enemies from any angle, which is the most important thing. The only exception, of course, is enemies where you can't do that, which we'll be experiencing in a minute, which is obviously most boss enemies have that problem, and oppressors. Is that it? I suppose it's it, isn't it, really? But hardened rounds just, in my opinion, feels a lot better, and we do have something that benefits greatly from weak points in our secondary slot. So we'll get to that in just a moment. And tier 3, high capacity magazine. It's just more sustained fire, especially when we're outputting bullets so quickly. It also brings our ammo total up to a clean 400. What it also does, which is kind of mixed on whether this is a positive or not, It doubles down on the idea of just a really out of control, wild. Basically, it's like almost like it's like a broken assault rifle. It's an assault rifle that's shooting way faster than an assault rifle should, so the instability almost makes sense. And we are going to be using this very much so as a close to mid-range weapon. This build absolutely takes away the long-range aspects. This overclock leans into taking away the long-range aspect of the GK2, but this build does it even more so. We're very much so just going to be mashing enemies up. That's why I call it the masher. It's going to be mashing enemies up front. It's kind of the idea. Secondary being the bolt shark lets us do the thing I just talked about, which is crowd clear. And we're achieving that through taking Specialist and taking Special Bolt, Chemical Explosion. Chemical Bolts are probably my favourite bolt of the bunch, and that includes all special bolts, including fire bolts and trifork bolts and even bodkin points. I really like the Chemical Explosion. What it does, it lets us achieve some pretty decent crowd clearing, including against Macteras actually, which I've experienced recently, but also supplementing damage over time against bigger enemies, so that we don't have to waste all of our, because you do use quite a bit of ammo. You'll be seeing you can use up to actually more than a clip on a Praetorian, I believe. So yeah, we basically take the Specialist, we take as many special bolts as possible, reload, because we're going to want to be swapping between the two bolt types pretty frequently, because our normal bolts do still serve a purpose, and that's why Banshee module is here, which is not what I necessarily would normally do, especially because of how much we get from potent special bolts. But what Banshee module does is, of course, allow us to fear enemies. Which you probably knew, but what it does, it actually gives it gives the normal bolts even more functionality, aside from just basically being our HVT killers, which you'll definitely see. Normal bolts are going to be used to drop things like Macteras and Mactera Trijaws, and just the occasional grunt, Acid Spitter, Web Spitter, that kind of thing. IFG is a little bit dicey for me. I probably would prefer to be using boomerangs, but that's just my default state. What the IFG does, though, it allows us to lock down targets, because this GK2 is not going to be slowing anything down. It kind of just wails into enemies, and the enemies don't really feel it until they're dead. We're not going to be slowing things down with the GK2. So the IFG lets us do that, and also just make sure we're dealing as much damage as possible. Because it's quite a careless GK2 as well. So that's the gist of that build. It's a very aggressive build, which is why I've gone for an Elimination, because I think this is a good showcase for this one, showcasing the DPS and also how this bolt shock works as a supplement to what the GK2 is doing. But it's also quite an aggressive build, so I thought I'd also snap on a bit of aggressive enemies. Next build will be next build, aka next mission, will be bumping up the enemy count instead. So yeah, let's get started. I think I have enough to say that I don't need to cut anything just yet. Because I just want to thank people a little bit. I do it a lot, I know that, but I feel like doing it. Just want to say thank you again just for general support and viewership. Obviously we're pretty close to potentially getting to 1.1 thousand subscribers. Videos on average do pretty well. Sometimes the podcasts don't, but that's okay. I kind of get it. I get that, long form DLG discussion isn't super attractive right now. We're definitely making efforts to change that with next episode, I think. But in general, especially these videos and some of the miscellaneous videos, like the one that we just did, which was the first proper gameplay video that we recorded together, and that's gone down pretty well, so thank you very much for that. And I think there will be more. There will almost definitely be more, no promises. I actually would like to, as long as Tyler's down for it, which I don't see why it wouldn't be, to do the rest of the balance changes introduced in the latest patch, which honestly I could talk about that for hours, even though there's not actually much in it. It's just the fact that we just got a random patch with actual tangible balance changes in it. I find it really warming. It's very evocative of old Ghost Ship, even though they didn't really used to do that kind of thing in random patches, basically. But I need to make sure. I don't think my voice isn't coming through there, is it? No, it's not. Okay. Yeah, I just find it really exciting. And I do, in my opinion, and I think this makes sense, in my opinion, the randomness of it, the fact that they kind of just threw this patch out that included some actual significant Not, once again, not a long list, but it did include significant changes. The randomness of it, like, obviously it's technically tied to Oktoberfest. It was the same patch where they introduced certain things in that patch to help with the Oktoberfest event, or Rocktoberfest. But in my opinion, it's still unprompted enough that I don't think it's going to be the last of these kind of patches. And I find that really exciting. I don't know who's doing this kind of thing. I don't know if it is Mike. I don't know how Mike has the time, to be honest. If it is Mike, that is. But I just want to say, once again, in case anyone from Coach was watching, we love that kind of stuff. And if there's any chance we could get more of it, then it would just be appreciated. It would just be cool. Because that's my kind of thing. Is small but impactful changes to weapons, because the weapons are just so damn important. They really are the lifeblood of the game, and the more sort of dynamic, like dynamism that we get from them, the more like notable, needed changes that we get. I mean, like Neurolasso, which tells me that Ghost Ship do understand that the weapon balancing in this game is not done. The fact that they saw that, you know, Neurolasso needed a buff, I find very gratifying, basically. I don't actually know what's... Wait, was that a complete waste for an IFG? Oh, maybe not. Hi. Come in. Come in the... Oh, fucking bastard. Whoa. Whoa! Ah! Okay. Bliat! How did I miss that?
The scale bramble is vulnerable. Stay clear of the explosive bomb. Gotta go slow. Barrage infector down.
Okay, you definitely saw some stuff there. So first of all, what you're going to notice is this this build uses ammo pretty quickly. The other thing you hopefully notice is how I manhandled that shellback. That is definitely one of the cornerstones of this build. Is shellbacks. Like, actually, I think there's something really delicious about using weapons that aren't inherently built for it, and you know what weapons actually are. I don't know. Breach cutter, guard diffractor. Coil gun, those kind of weapons that are kind of built for shellbacks. When you're using just an assault rifle that normally just pings off its hide, the fact that we're just shredding through it, it's just, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing, I think. Anyway, I think I'm going to start this Dreadnought fight before any more enemies show up. I want to be able to move on without having to place a resupply in the sprint. And it doesn't matter what Dreadnought we get. Hiveguard, perfectly fine. Honestly, I was kind of thinking it would be nice to get Hiveguard. Because this build should be equally good against all of them. Although twins would be nice, because what the twins are, unlike a lot of other bosses, is they are covered in armor. Which means... Oh, I hit there. Oh, I did hit the 17, good. Them being covered in armor, what that means is that they're actually not invincible from any angle. They're just armored from every angle. And we have a really powerful armor-breaking GK2 in tow. Also, I might have forgotten... Well, not... No, actually, yeah, I kind of forgot about aggressive enemies. So that's definitely going to play into this. Hopefully my aggressiveness is able to match theirs. Now, this is a job for the Bolt Shark. I mean, finishing off those segments will be GK2 job. This is where you can see the cohesiveness of this build really coming together. I hope. Okay, that doesn't reek of aggressive enemies to me, does it? And there we go. Pretty much, I think that was pretty much one clip, and we brought it down by a segment. That's what I was hoping for. The awesome thing about, in my opinion, about Banshee module on the Bolt Shark is that basically it's a way to get infinite crowd control, which I know is like super hypocritical, based on what I said in the previous video about about Neuralasso, but Fear is a much better crowd control effect than just slowing enemies down, because Fear actually makes them, you know, go away from you and also interrupts attacks, unlike simple slowing down. Flat slowdowns are not that useful, if I'm just being honest. They are if you can grind the enemy to a halt, which of course we did achieve against the Bolt Detonator. So there's an arrow around here, and we want to pick it up. I guess I'll have to wait until we're done. I wish arrows were highlighted by the brain scanner. That's something I think should change. Oh shit. Right.
Not ready. There's the target. Eat it. Take it easy.
Okay, where'd that arrow go? Nice. I love it when they domino. I think that stuff's great. Oh, I want to slow this guy down a bit. I think. Bring him down a peg, especially when I fuck up like that. Alright, I think for safety reasons, because there's definitely going to be big groups of enemies, I'm going to need a resupply before I move through, I think. Also, that bolt is going to kill that Hiveguard, which is why I'm glad I've actually been able to break away from taking... I don't even know what the upgrade's called. But the tier 5 upgrade for the Bolt Shark that increases special bolt duration, I've kind of been married to it for a while, and I still use it for a lot of things. You'll see it in the next build, actually. But I'm glad I was able to break away from it for this, because it's always been a pretty hard and fast build of mine. Also, watch this. Boss code, fuck off. I mean, I'm not sure what I was trying to show you. Well, I know what I'm trying to show you. I'm trying to show you the fear. And yeah, it worked. It didn't work against some of them, but it worked against most of them pretty well. And that's the idea. But yeah, I mean, it's nice because I actually feel like the reason why I couldn't help but take that upgrade was to bolster the abilities of my chemical bolts. But then I realised I'm mainly taking the chemical bolts for crowd clearing, but I don't really have any crowd control. I mean, the chemical bolts themselves, the explosion they produce does stun and fear, which is good, but it doesn't happen too often. Obviously, you have to kill the enemy to cause it. So having a free form of crowd control in your pocket with the Banshee module bolts is really nice. Anyway, I think it's time to cut a little bit. I will meet you either if we get a big ambush or with the next Dreadnought, I suppose. Although, takeaways are... this thing deals very good DPS regardless of weak points. And that makes it good against pretty much any enemy in a vacuum. But the build overall does cover up any patches there. We have good crowd control, we have good crowd clearing, we have a way to supplement our single target damage with a damage over time effect from the chemical bolts. So overall, it's a really smooth build. It kind of just makes sense, and those are my favourite kinds of builds, where you know what to do in any given situation. We also have the IFGs, which help us just lock down and just hammer in those enemies more justifiably. And that's my favourite thing about it, I think. The fact is, we're not taking any real, we're not taking any real damage boosts from our overclock slot. All that's doing is adding DPS, not actual damage, just a higher rate of fire. But because our DPS, our rate of fire is so high, our damage, relative to the amount of time it takes to deal it, I think is very powerful and very much so worth trying to tap into. If you have a hard time sort of justifying this kind of thing, I actually completely get it, because I kind of do as well. Also, Spitballer. I'm not going to use an IFG on it, I don't think. But I might on the scale ramble. This guy. Barrage Infector. Hi. Okay, that's how quickly you're meant to kill a shellback. And that's more like it. Okay. I like that. Right, boss could kill that guy. I'm probably going to clear this. Okay, this room actually has the Dreadnought in it. And a Hoarder. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to grab some Nitro and stuff and probably going to go back and get another resupply at some point before this Dreadnought fight. I'll see you then. Although a single Trijaw has shown up. Well, I mean, it's more than a single Trijaw, isn't it? But... Whoa! Oh, I don't have a guy yet. Shit. That all went wrong. Looks like I'm not going to get a guy unless I take this guy, which I will. Yeah. I don't mind normal grunts. He can hang. Yeah, every time like the GK2 is used, you can see it just tearing stuff apart. Like it's just, it's nice. It's a really good overclock actually, and I'm glad I got it actually because weirdly enough, I kind of struggled with the practice actually, trying to form the builds. This one I'm pretty comfortable with, but the next build is pretty much just a fallback. Just me just falling back on, just falling back on a build that I know works basically. I guess I should talk a little bit about the differences between the builds, but I'll save that. Let's actually skip to when I start the Dreadnought. I genuinely have no sense of... Like, I'm trying to think of what this Dreadnought could be. No concept. Normal Dreadnought? Oh. Well, maybe I do. Anyways, this is actually an interesting one, where of course we have been using, as you saw in the Hiveguard fight, we did use the GK2 against the weak point, but I might change that dynamic. Potentially. I might actually use the GK2 mainly for this segment. And I think that might have been the right decision. Yeah, that was definitely something. Oh. Aggressive Dreadnought. Keep that in mind. Hyper aggressive. Huh. Okay. The benefits of solo. I can pause to take a sip of tea. Oh, I think I want to do the rest actually. Well, no. I think the GK2 for the shield makes sense. I am left with quite a few chemical bolts, so... And hyper-aggressive swarms. Not hyper-aggressive, just more aggressive. Ooh. Oh dear. And aggressive enemies does also mean faster enemy projectiles. Okay, so I don't really know if there are any more takeaways to really share. I mean, it's pretty... It's kind of locked into what it is. It's just a strong way of basically taking care of single targets, but also picking things off. It doesn't double as crowd clear, per se, but it's the kind of thing... It brings it a bit closer to the minigun in terms of, you know, the minigun, you can kind of just tear through groups of enemies by just picking them off one by one. We're just about scraping against that, which is kind of what this build is. That's why we have everything kind of everything kind of designed to synergize, whereas in the next build, the GK2 is very much so a single and HVT target killer, and the Bulk Shark is entirely just for, you know, crowd control and crowd clearing. Dichotomy is much more definitive. The duality is much more definitive of the build. Here, it's much more of a hybrid, where we kind of use everything for a bit of everything, which is nothing I like. I on the whole, I probably like those two sort of paradigms of builds almost equally. I probably like this kind of bit more though. I mean, when it comes to making builds, my instincts tend to steer me towards speccing something for single target, speccing something for crowd clearing. Obviously, there's more to it than that. You know, HVT killing is kind of a separate thing from crowd clearing. Trash clear is also a separate thing almost from that. It kind of lies in between single target and crowd clearing. And of course, crowd control is its own beast. There's much more layers to builds than just single target and crowd clearing. And you know, that's kind of what Engineer is without turrets. You just have to basically make your primary a single target killer, your secondary the other thing. Sometimes you can do it the other way around. And then the sentries are entirely for trash clear. Interesting. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip either to... Well, I might show a bit more combat if we get into any, but I'll skip to... If there's anything in the next room, you'll see that, but mostly we're just going to be gunning for extraction at this point. So, speaking of which... And not those guys, though. I don't like those guys. What? 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 Bro was just not interested in dying. Oh, was it literally just... Oh, hi. Alright. No IFG for this one. I think that'll finish it off. I think. Don't quote me on that. Well, I mean, if Bosco gets involved, then it will finish it, I suppose. It doesn't really count. Move on. Wait, what? Why was that not affected by the IFG? I swear, I think its shellbacks are really janky when it comes to this kind of thing, being affected by things or not. Anyway, looks like there's nothing here, so we're getting out of here. But we'll open up this this entranceway. Oh, it's kind of open anyway. So Molly would probably go through there if she wanted to. What are you doing here?
You're fast, bug, but I'm faster. I ordered a resupply.
Stand back, supply pod inbound.
What the?
Got no flares ready. Don't die. Supply is here. Who's a good Griffin?
That's just chemical bolt things for you.
Pod inbound. Stand clear.
Alright, let's get out of here. I don't really know what to say, obviously, apart from what I've already said, because it's just fairly simple. I guess a good question is whether it makes you truly better at single target. And I would say it does in a sense. Obviously,
Grappling hook.
the ones that obviously do that are like AI Stability Engine and then Bullets of Mercy in, you know, the right context.
Departing in T-minus.
And of course, Homebrew Powder, but I know people don't really go in for that, but that's fine. But I think it does make you better at single target when you can output such high DPS in a short amount of time. And I am speaking in very theoretical terms, because what I'm really talking about is, say, in comparison to AI Stability Engine, where you can very easily lose damage, and you do, because it actually has a small damage penalty built into it. So you're very liable to lose damage while using AI Stability Engine. But with something like Overclocked Firing Mechanism, it increases our DPS and doesn't really give us any increased risk of losing damage, unless you find things with higher rate of fire harder to like control, which is possible. but as long as you're using it in the right circumstances, you shouldn't really be wasting ammo. Whereas, even if you're using it right, it's still very possible to waste ammo with the other weapons, or with the other overclocks. Bullets of Mercy is a little bit harder, but Bullets of Mercy, of course, you have a pretty mediocre DPS. You just have the GK2's base DPS when you're shooting anything that isn't afflicted, which of course is quite easy to inflict things. I think Bullets of Mercy is very strong, and it's been a while since I've used it, to be honest, like a really long time, and I would like to use it again. But what Overclocked Firing Mechanism really taps into, and this even surpasses Homebrew Powder, where Homebrew Powder, of course, has the chance to low roll, which could be the difference between good or bad ammo economy. Overclocked Firing Mechanism taps into the idea of just increase the DPS, just a pure rate of fire. So, and that's it. It's just completely unbiased. Obviously, your accuracy is affected, but that's it. And how bad is that, really? I mean, it can be bad, right? It can be, obviously. But it's not, you know, it's not the same kind of penalty as what the other things have. So I think it is more than worth your time. Also, okay, that's Bullets of Mercy. I got confused about what the logo was. I thought it actually had Burst Fire's logo. Also, I mean, how exactly can Burst Fire be bad? I'm not stupid, am I? I mean, I know the problem with it, but it's also, I think the problems are also, whatever. Anyway, so the other build, who I just realised looks a bit like George R.R. Martin. Hold on.
This fits well.
Anyway, this one is built around, like I said, of the GK2 being a pure single target and also HVT killer, while the Bolt Shark is purely trash clear and swarm clear. And that's done for a very simple means of firebolts. You're probably very familiar with this. Firebolts, we take lots of firebolts, so we have increased ammo here. Then we take pheromones to attract enemies, to individual tanky enemies, to serve as source of fire, which helps us not only stay alive because the enemies aren't attacking us, but it also helps spread the fire very efficiently and keep it alive, basically. It's a very simple and very understandable and very powerful build, especially on solo. And that's that. And we're going to just continue with my assignments to make things easier on myself, but of course we're going to be going for a bit more enemies this time. The GK2 itself is built to basically combat Overclocked Firing Mechanism's penalty, which is of course a stronger recall. So we're going in for actually accuracy and of course the recall dampening in tier 3. And of course, because we're going for a sort of accuracy focused build, we are taking weak point bonus instead. And the reason why we do this is because there are still situations where personally I kind of wish I could break armor. But when it comes to certain things like Praetorians, for example, they're very often being controlled by pheromones, which means they are they're kind of just disabled, so we can just get around them pretty easily. Certain things obviously doesn't apply to, like Brundles and Shellbacks, and they are problematic, but sometimes you just got to take one for the team. That extra weak point damage is really good when it counts. So yes, that is that. And in tier 2, of course, we're taking ammo this time. This is just to bolster our HVT killing potential, and so that we don't feel bad about really laying into larger enemies. It makes you feel a bit more efficient. I think you could reasonably take increased caliber rounds, especially with how efficient our Bolt Shark is. But the idea is that we're going to be using the GK2 quite a bit, or at least trying to. We're not skimping on GK2 usage with this build. Obviously, tier 5 is interesting. It's actually the same as the previous. We just take increased rate of fire. But that's because I wouldn't call any of the others essential, and I really want the rate of fire to be, truly doubled down upon, in a sense, no matter what we're doing. We still have, quite good accuracy despite this, and of course our weak point bonus, so why not take a bit of extra rate of fire in tier 5 on top of what we already have? It feels pretty good. And this is of course better for more generic missions. The other build does not suffer, but this one is slightly better in these circumstances. Unfortunately, where this build falters is the fact that it's pretty bad on elimination. You can probably get away with it on industrial sabotage because the fire can work against the turrets, but for the most part, this build doesn't do great against bosses. It's much better against just a more generic encounter, which luckily for us is a majority of the game, technically speaking. But it is still something to keep in mind. Anyway, so you're going to be seeing now what a pretty generic weak point focused GK2 build looks like, which I don't use all that often. I've got to say, oh, Betsy's actually not a bad thing. Because of course we have weak point damage, and Betsy is nothing but weak points. Oh god, look at his nitro. Yeah, I mean, doing this though, because it is technically a fairly generic overclock, it makes me not look forward to when I get around to the cleans. I can't even remember what they're called, but the accuracy clean and the rate of fire clean. It's like, what am I really going to do differently here? It makes me wish they sort of had certain things going on. Like the accuracy one, for example, maybe it could have a small weak point bonus. Something like that. That's the kind of thing I would be looking for. And maybe the rate of fire one could come with a small inbuilt armor breaking. I don't know. Things like that kind of make me... I still love the cleans in general and I respect them, unlike some people. I always hold cleans to the same standards as other overclocks, but some of them I do wish they had more going on, especially on a weapon like the GK2, where it's all of its balanced unstable overclocks. They're not crazy, so you never really feel attracted to the cleans to really satiate that need for like a more generic build, because it's kind of generic anyway. Oh, I forgot I wasn't using IFGs. Okay, that was a mistake. I did not mean to use IFGs. No, I did not mean to use my pheromone grenades like that, which has put me in a really awkward position. I'm trying to hit the guard, and I just can't. Which is a really bad showcase for firebolts. And I'm just going to sound insane when I say this genuinely isn't how it normally goes. I think I just got completely thrown off by accidentally wasting a pheromone. Which is fine. You know, we can come back from it. But I really should have tamed a Steve there. That's for certain. Okay.
Help me mine this.
And of course, I can hear that stalker somewhere. Don't know where. Keeping my eyes out.
Prepare to fight for your life. The big swarm is approaching.
Okay. Swarm. Good.
Get back. It's sandwich time.
I'll admit, this one is going to be it's going to be a bit more of a showcase for firebolts probably in the long run. But hopefully, the point of building a GK2 like this will still shine through. A shellback. Now, a shellback is good because it's the kind of thing that we're not necessarily great against. So I'm just going to wait for him to open up. Or not. There he is. Okay. I think I've dealt with what it could have been. Now, this is weird. Trying where the enemies are. Okay, there's most of them. So let's do some firebolt stuff. My boss goes obsessed with that Praetorian because, frankly, I'd rather he wasn't damaging it.
You're a stain on the floor.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like a Hazard 5 swarm, to be honest. And there might be more enemies. I mean, they kind of keep pouring through from there, don't they? Why am I not able to hit Pheromone bolts today? Okay, overall that probably, you know, of course it is a Hazard 5 swarm, but overall I'd say that is about right, actually. Well, maybe not, given that I've got more enemies turned on. There's a Stalker. It's finally showed itself. And as you can see, compared to the last build, much more efficient. We've even got more enemies on, and it's just a lot cleaner in that, from that perspective. Look at that. Oh, Steve just died in a fire. Oh my god, that was horrifying. Poor guy. So we didn't get a true sense of how good this is at single target, mainly because I did a bad job at killing that goo bomber, but HVT killing for sure, because we just lasered down acid spitters as soon as they showed up without a problem. Which shows, I mean, this is kind of it's probably going to be a recognizable approach for these videos in the future, where I kind of double down on what the overclock is doing, and then in the other build sort of, fight back against these penalties, which I think are tend to be two sensible ways that you can build any given overclock. Is you either, you play into what it's doing, or you let it do what it does and just try and make up for the penalties. I think that makes sense in a lot of scenarios. Not every overclock, I would say, that's the exact approach you should take, but this is definitely one where it makes sense, because it's a very simple big boost in a single stat kind of thing, which lends itself to this kind of approach of like double down on that stat, or let the overclock take the reins with that stat and focus on other things. Of course, this is that one. This is the second thing, but we still have extra rate of fire in tier 5 because it's weird. It's weird that the GK2 offers like so much rate of fire, like ways to increase rate of fire. Kind of neat. It's a lot. It's like it's a notable amount. It's noticeably more than most weapons, I'd say. And the minigun only technically has 2. One of them is, of course, the overclock that does it.
Deep Rock seriously need to invest in
Okay.
better equipment.
I thought so. I actually thought it would send the second swarm, and we're probably not even going to need a resupply. Even well, maybe after it. I'm not sure, but for now we're completely fine. What does that tell you? Although I will say, both of these builds, not great against tiny enemies, or well, specifically flying tiny enemies. Swarmers we can deal with firebolts pretty easily, actually. Actually, something that firebolts likes is swarmers. This idiot. It's almost difficult to actually get a chance to use the single target aspect of the build. the crowd control is just so like overbearing. Whoa! Oh, good work, everyone. Good work, Steve. So yeah, we're still not really seeing truly the single target aspects, but in the situations we're running into, the crowd control is just kind of taking the lead, and we can kind of just pick things off with the GK2. In things like Praetorians, for example, kind of die over time anyway. Those we keep them, you know, controlled and in the fire. Which isn't, you know, it's not really a GK2 thing. It's not just a Bolt Shark thing, but... Which is why I'm sort of just racking my brain trying to think of a way to explain a sensible reason why you might use these two in tandem. Because, of course, strong argument for... It's a pretty strong argument for Bullets of Mercy, I'd say, when it comes to the Firebolt Pheromone Bolt build. Same with AI Stability Engine, actually, because it kind of locks enemies down so well and allows you to focus on the weak point just more reasonably, without having to worry about much else. So what I would say, when it comes to just going for an overclock, what it already does is add rate of fire, what we actually have is something that doesn't rely on that control to be at its best. Because, of course, strong crowd control covers for the weaknesses of a stability engine. Having a powerful elemental weapon, of course, helps Bullets of Mercy do what it does. But we have a weapon that is completely unbiased to those aspects, where the two weapons can sort of just operate separately from each other, but also in complete synergy, where they don't inherently aid each other, but they don't need to because they just do exactly what they need to do by themselves. So I knew that's going to happen, so we're definitely going to take a death here. Don't hold it against Betsy, though. So far, the Betsy fight in a vacuum is going perfectly fine. But I just don't have cave leech sense. Even though I play a lot of Scout and I don't play with heightened senses on Scout, I just don't have cave leech sense at all. I just don't look up. It just doesn't register in my brain as like a thing to do. So where's Betsy up? Got on off too. Core Stone will definitely do the... Whoa, this place is packed. Okay. Where is she? We'll definitely do the Core Stone, but with Betsy's help, if you don't mind. Every time. I just can't do it completely cleanly. I just can't kill Bets. I'm so close as well. It's just there not being any problems with this fight, but she just decides to just gun me down in that final moment. Oh well. Can't blame her. Her job. But I also do blame her completely. Fuck you, Betsy. But I guess what we saw there was that our actual single target DPS is actually just okay. Which isn't surprising, but once again, I'll reiterate, I think the unbiased nature of it is actually commendable. The fact that we don't have to hit a weak point to still have okay DPS, the fact that we don't have to make sure enemies are afflicted in some way, it's also nice. the fact that we don't have to use the GK2 as a means to set up strong single target damage with our secondary, I would say it might be the best unbiased GK2 overclock. The competition is pretty slim. The competition is, you know, Burst Fire and Open Powder, which are two overclocks that people don't have much favour for, at least as far as the GK2 goes. But it might be the best out of those three. Maybe? I mean, I did say it was my second favourite GK2 overclock, and that's true. And that's it. I didn't actually have a point there. Fuck. Alright, well now let's do an event that has nothing to do with weapons at all. So what can I say doing this? I don't know. Maybe I could talk about stuff that I like the Mass Effect trilogy. Because my goodness, I really like these games. I'm playing Mass Effect 1 and Baldur's Gate 3 at the same time. And I played Mass Effect 1 before already. And I mean, I prefer Mass Effect. I actually really like Baldur's Gate, by the way. I really like. I'm surprised how much I like turn-based stuff, because I actually do. I almost like all types of games. And that even extends to puzzle games, which is definitely not what I expected after playing Planet of Lana. But that was actually a really beautiful game, visually and narratively as well. So I would highly recommend that. I mean, Game Pass is just an avenue to such great things, because Game Pass has things like that on it, like what I just said, Planet of Lana, but also the Mass Effect trilogy, which is crazy. You can get that just by having Game Pass. It's like one of the greatest video game trilogies of all time. Maybe the greatest trilogy, like genuinely. It's definitely like it must be the most consistent. I know there are other great ones like The Witcher, but let's be honest, everyone agrees that, you know, Witcher 3 is like way better than the other two. Even Halo, I think, is a bit more mixed overall than the Mass Effect trilogy is. Okay. Nice. I want to resupply around here. I think what I'm also going to do is actually just... I think I'm going to immediately start the Core Stone event, even without taking a resupply. This might be foolish, but I'm doing it. Gonna be a lot of pheromone work here, by the way. Firebolts aren't great against core spawn. It's better to kill it. Huh?
Pheromone, save your ammunition.
Now that was actually an okay showcase of the single target. When we were able to just shoot the core spawn, just very respectable speed of elimination, I suppose. if it wasn't clear by this point, all in all, I do recommend this Overclock. I think it's quite good.
Mine it.
And there aren't really any caveats to that. I guess it's just not that interesting. But also, a really fast-firing, like, satisfying feeling assault rifle isn't the opposite of fun in a video game.
Come here.
I mean, there's a difference between uninteresting and unfun. It's not unfun, but it probably is uninteresting. Praetorians are a weird one. Praetorians almost make me wish I could, like, get rid of the stun. You know? I honestly wouldn't even hate if that actually was what it did. If it was, like, made it an unstable or something and the rate of fire was, like, bonus was even higher, but it also removed your stun capabilities, I actually would not mind, because it would make you actually better against Praetorians. Oh, goodness me. Dios mío.
Come here, you blind tin can.
Alright, let's try and actually generate a respectable amount of enemies to kill.
Lights up. Give me
That's
some light.
one of the last eggs. The other one. So
Come here.
we are going to, ideally, retrieve them in tandem. And get frozen in the process.
Follow me.
Hello? And monsieur?
Hellflare's ready.
Oh, good one. Oh, but Betsy's already destroyed the weak point. But luckily, we still deal good DPS when not hitting weak points. And therein lies the beauty of Overclocked Firing Mechanism. Reliable, unbiased, increased DPS.
Open. Zippity.
Sort of like Ian Refire Booster, really, except that's even better.
Light. Ah. Particle eliminated.
Primary objective has been achieved. Bonus will be transferred to your account as mission complete.
Bonus.
Lighting up.
Pardon me.
I need a damn minecart.
All right.
leg. Where is it?
I think it's time to leave.
Getting supplies.
Kind of presser. It is. Bosco, go away. Betsy I can't do much about, but I'm going to say. Well, at least we killed it before it turned around. Although Betsy, you know, objectively helped with that, but still.
Collection completed. Well done.
Now you know the single target is okay.
Ready.
Ammo tank.
And now we can leave.
Pod is on the way.
Yeah, I think that's all there is to it. I think I also just gave a pretty good rundown of what Overclock is. Just reliable, reliable, unbiased increase to DPS. And that's it. It's not complicated, it's not fancy, but it is noticeable. And I think that's where the intrigue kicks in. The fact that it is, you know, the fact that it creates an instability for the weapon where it's such high rate of fire also increases the recoil. I think does add some intrigue to playing with it, where it does change the gun feel, and I think that is an important aspect of Overclock. So when an Overclock changes the gun feel, I think that is important. I think that aids its novelty and therefore aids why you might want to use it.
Go, go, go! Drop point isn't waiting forever.
And gunfeel was clearly a pretty big focus of a lot of the season 5 overclocks.
Steve died honorably.
Steve. I am Steve.
News been successfully retrieved. Need snappy team to drop pod and hang around forever. Drop pod departing in T-minus 4 minutes.
Did I even hit a single one? I think I did. I think I hit at least one. Anyway, so that's going to be it. So, yeah. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, then please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to see more videos like this, and you want to stay on top of everything to do with Deep Rock and Road Core, then also please click the bell. And now we will move on to choosing, or being chosen for us, next Overclock. Tyler said, oh, it should probably be Neurolasso, right? And I was like, no, I have a system. Also, we've already done a video on Neurolasso, so I don't actually want to do it now. Now that we've just done that video, I don't want to use Neurolasso at the moment. So I will, in a brief moment, bring up the Wheel of Fortune. Oh, refinery. Alright, if you're new here, here's how this works. So we have the Warthog, which is the next weapon, which is why I'm actually glad I chose to start with Gunner. Obviously, this is going to come back and bite me a little bit when we get to the Zukovs. But the Warthog, I'm already 1 down out of 6. So it's only 5 to go. Of course, you know, it doesn't really matter because some weapons have 7 and whatnot, or 8, I guess, now, technically. But we're still, you know, only 5 of these. As opposed to, you know, this... Yeah, well, I guess there's 6 left for the minigun, for example. But only 5 left for the Warthog. But it could have been even less if I started with the Warthog, is what I'm saying. So, obviously, pump action is the one that it won't be. How this works is I have... the wheel will have numbers on it. And the numbers will be basically from left to right for the weapon. So for this, from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously, we exclude 3, which is pump action. So it's actually going to be 1 to 6 on the wheel. And I'm going to show you the wheel now. Also, what I should do is actually... I don't know you can do this. Oh, is this right? No, because what we want is 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. That's right. Ignore the picture in the wheel. I mean, actually don't. The side point is I put something different in there each time. So I spin the wheel. I kind of know what I... No. I was literally just about to say. I kind of know what I want. I think it's number 5. Because 5 is, of course... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dana. Which is an overclock that I don't have enough respect for, I'm pretty sure. I think I know that this thing is better than I give it credit for. So that should be good. That'll be next week. So look forward to that. And once again, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Wait a minute, that's not how I end these. Pardon me.
Black Lock Lager, please.